We'll do now in Sefer Hamamorim Melukat and Cheli Gimel. This is the 41st Maimer, the Maimer Shir Hamalis LeDavid. Hine Matoyu Manoim Shevasachim Gam Yocha. The Rebbe said this Maimer on Lag BaOmer Hey Tovshin Chof Beis, and this actually was published in a booklet, a kuntres for Lag BaOmer for the year Tovshin Nun. And as it says in that kuntres, this was in honor for the upcoming Lag BaOmer, which dated Erev Shabbos Kodesh Parshas Va'emer Va'amarta in year Tovshin Nun. So now we'll do this Maimer. B'siyayta Dishmaya Lag BaOmer Hey Tovshin Chabes. So it begins with the Posik Shir Hamailis LeDavid. So this is a song on the steps for David that David sang, and what he said was, "Hine matoivim anoim." Behold, how good and how pleasant is Sheves Achim, brothers sitting Gam Yocha together. So Pasuk in Tehillim in Perek Kuf Lamed Gimel Pasuk Aleph. So my father-in-law, the Rebbe in the Maimer that opens up with the same Maimer with Shira Mailas of David, he asked the question, Harei Sheves Achim Hu Sheyoshvim Yachad Be'achva Ve'ava. By the way, the Maimer of the Rebbe that was there was said at the Tanoim of the daughter of the previous Rebbe, the Rebbetzin Morris Shena, with her husband who got married at the Tanoim, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Kohen Horenstein, and the Rebbe gave this Maimer at that occasion, and we will see that the Maimer actually discusses the idea of Tanoim and marriage, so that gives us some context in what the Maimer was said. But the question that the Rebbe asked, it already says Sheves Achim. What does it mean, Sheves Achim? It means that brotherly sitting together. That it means that they're sitting together with brotherhood and with love. So what is it added when it says Gam Yochad? Is it Batoy Manoim Sheves Achim? It should be sufficient. What is it added? What does Gam Yochad add? So he explains the Achim Heim HaNeshomes the Dcharu Nukva Hashayochim Zelozeh. When it says Sheves Achim, that is referencing Achim are souls. There are the male souls, there is the feminine souls, and the masculine souls. And these souls, there are those that are connected. Those who actually get married means that their soul is connected. So we have the souls of the masculine, we have the souls of the feminine, Hashayochim Zelozeh, that really are connected. They belong to one another, which is the idea of Choson v'Kala. You have the Choson and the Kala, the masculine and the feminine. But so what is the idea of Sheves Achim, bringing together? V'Sheves Achim hu hakiruva ha'his kashrus shalahem b'kishurei tanoim. The Sheves Achim represents that closeness, that tie together, which takes place when they're tied together by the tanoim. The beginning of the process, the conditions on getting married. This is in preparation for the marriage. When the marriage actually takes place, then Gam Yochad, you become the real together. Noisef al his kashrus. In addition to tying themselves up, which is the Tanoim, Gam Yichud, there is also a union. At that point, it becomes the marriage. There is a Yichud, and that is hinted by Gam Yochad. So you have the Sheves Achim, that's the Tanoim, and Gam Yochad is the marriage. Mamshech Baz Maimer, so continues the Maimer, the Isa B'Zoyhar, that in the Zoyar, how does he tie Sheves Achim Gam Yochad? So who's the Achim? So he says, Kuchabrichu Ukneses Yisrael. So the Achim is Knesset Yisrael with Hashem, with Kuchabrichu. What is Gam? L'Rabbis Yisrael Dilatata. To include Gam Yochad, not only Knesset Yisrael, which is Yisrael Dilaelo. That's the way the Yidden are on top, above. In the level of Knesset Yisrael, the Gam Yochad is saying that the Kuchabrichu also connects with the Yisrael Dilatata. So, V'yesh Loimar, so the Rebbe says we can say Shahashayichus the Hapirush Shahachim Heim Chosun V'Kalam, as the Rebbe started off the Maimer. He says that the Achim is the Chosun V'Kalam. So what's the connection in Maimer HaZoyar with what the Zoyar learns, the Koyi Al Kutsha Brichu Knesset Yisrael, that it goes on Hashem and Knesset Yisrael? Because in essence, the Kutsha Brichu is also an idea. Kuchabrichu with Knesset Yisrael is also like a chas and a kala. And the connection of Sheves Achim Gam Yochad that is here, Lamata, comes from the Sheves Achim Gam Yochad, what it says in the Zohar. Ki chosun v'kalo shel Lamata. The chosun and kala below, mishtal shalim mechosun v'kalo shel Lamayla. They evolve and they come from the chosun and kala above. The way it's Kuchabrichu with the Knesset Yisrael, that is the Mishtalshlus. From that comes the Chosna Kala. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Knesset Yisrael. And as the Rebbe brings down over here in Ha'ore 6 from the Maimer in Tofresh Sadik Beis, that the Lag Boimer, that the Rebbe said this Maimer, the Friedrich Rebbe, that also by Kodesh Baruch Hu Knesset Yisrael, we have the Tanoim and we have the wedding. On Shavuos is in Ha'or 6. And Shavuos is the Chasana of HaKadosh Baruch Hu with the Yidden, as the Gemara says, B'yom Chasunos in Tainis, in the Mishnah, that B'yom Chasunos, the marriage of HaKadosh Baruch Hu with the Yidden takes place in Matan Torah. And on Lag BaOmer, which is before the Matan Torah, that's when the Tanoim takes place. And from Lag BaOmer until the wedding, until Shavuos, that is the time when the Chosin sends the gifts to the Kala, the Sivloinis, that a Chosin sends to the Kala. That is from Lag BaOmer till Shavuos. But in any event, this is all telling us about that what takes place over here with the Chosin Kala Lamato, the Tanoim, and the marriage also takes place between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Knesset Yisrael. So this explains to us, because in the Maimer itself, he was talking about Sheves Achim, Gam Yochad, about the Chosin Kala Lamata. Why does he bring in all of a sudden the Taich from the Zohar that it talks about HaKadosh Baruch Hu? So, maybe b'hamaimer mashakosu b'zoyar Sheves Achim hem HaKadosh Baruch Hu Knesset Yisrael. That's why he brings in the Maimer. What the Zohar says, that Sheves Achim is HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Knesset Yisrael. Kizeu ha'yisoid lapiru sha'achim heim chosun v'kala, because that is the basis for the interpretation that Achim is chosun kala. It's based on the Zohar. Since the Zohar says that it's Kuchbir Knesset Yisrael, which is like the chosun v'kala. That's why he explains that the Sheves Achim is the Chosun Kala and Gam Yochad is the marriage, and Sheves Achim is the Torah. So the Rebbe says we can add the habir sheba hamaimer. That this the Maimer explains. Bishnei hoinyonim dishevas achim begam yachad. So the Maimer explained that there's two levels. Shevas achim is tanoim, and yachad is marriage. But we can explain that hugam lehapirush is also according to the interpretation. In Tehillim, the Mefarshim, they explain not a chosn kala, talking about Yidden. Sheves achim, achim koi al b'nei Yisrael. It talks about the b'nei Yisrael, our brothers, not the neshamas, the dochra, or the male and the female, the chosn kala. Talking about Jewish people, sheves achim, brothers, the b'nei Yisrael. But we can say, the Rebbe says that this explanation that there's two steps of Kishuri Tunoim and the marriage, we can also explain it according to the Pirush that it goes on general, the Yid. That in the love and the brotherhood, which is amongst the Bnei Yisrael, there are two madregas b'chlol. Generally speaking, there are two levels over there. His kashrus bedugmas kishuri tnoim. There's a level where they tie, which is similar to tying for a tnoim. But and then they come to a union from like the marriage later on. So now we can say, so now we're saying that this is not just by Chosam Kala, this is by all Yidden. We'll also understand additionally why he brings the Zohar about the Yichud of Kutchabrichu and Knesset Yisrael. So based on this we can say, why does the Maimer bring the interpretation of the Zohar? The Sheves Achim Gam Yochad Koi Al Yichud Kutchabrichu Knesset Yisrael. That the Sheves Achim Gam Yochad is referring to the union of Kutchabrichu Knesset Yisrael, who is Kibirdei Shaha'abe V'Ha'ava the Yisrael Tia Ba'ifun the Yachad. In order to be able to have the Abba V'Achva the Yisrael, as the Mefarshim explained, the Yidden to be together, that it should be not just Sheves, it should be Yachad. Dugmas HaYachad the Nisuyin, which is similar to the Yachad of the Nisuyin, who al Yidei Gilui HaYichud the Yisrael im Kudsha Brichu. That is by revealing the union of Yidden with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If we reveal that union, brings down the Zohar that there is a union of Kudsha Brichu and Yisrael, then we can also unite with another Yid in a way of marriage as such a Yichud. Ba'al Pizeh, as the Rebbe will explain all this later on in the Maimer. Ba'al Pizeh yesh levayer gam ma shehakosuv mamshich. Also, based on this, we can further explain the pasuk continues. The Sheves Achim Gam Yachad Hu says it's kishemen hatoiv al harosh. It's like the good oil on the head. Yored al azokin, that descends on the beard. Zakan Aaron, the beard of Aaron. Sheyored al pimidosav, that descends on the emotions. What does this continuation of the pasuk have to do with this? Is kibichdei shayichud the kutshabrichu v'Yisrael Yifel be Yisrael, that in order that the yichud of kutshabrichu and Yisrael brought down in the Zohar Sheves Achim, that Yifel be Yisrael achva v'achva mit ava v'achva mit, this should impact by the Yidden a love and a brotherhood, a truthful love and a brotherhood, from the Yachad, to the extent that it becomes really Yachad, who al yidei yeridas v'hamshochas shemen hatoiv. That is through what the end of the pasuk says, by the descent and extending the good oil, common sivches, as later on in sivches. So basically, the Rebbe is saying that there is the pirush of the Mefarshim that they explain that this is all talking about the union of Yidden, and therefore by the union of Yidden there is two levels. There is the level of like the Tanoim just tying themselves together, but ultimately it's the Gam Yochad is the marriage. So for Yidden, in order for Yidden to be able to experience that level of Yichud, they need to first reveal the Yichud of Kudsha B'rich with Knesset Yisrael. And then they can come to the level of Yachad. And all this takes place through the Shem and Atoy Sheyered, as the Rebbe will explain in the Maimer. Oizbeis. The Bahagdim will understand this by introducing that the Isa Bezoyar is brought down in the Zoyar. Zimna choda hava tzricha almo limitra. It happened that once the world needed rain. Asul lekamei Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai. So they came before Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai. Vayidei sha'omar drush beposik. Hinei matev umanoim shavesachim gam yochad. He expounded the verse Matoiv umanoim shavesachim gam yochad. How good and pleasant is the brothers sitting together. Yorad mata. Then the rain descended. He said it. And it's known the question that we have over here. How could it be that Rav Shimon bar Yochai, by giving a drasha on the pasuk, was able to get rain? Usually, in order to get rain, we require a big effort. We do find that in order to effect for rain to come down, brings down from the Mishnah in Tainis, that they would add specially 6 brachas to the Amida in the Shemoneh Esrei. And further, so it took a whole bunch of brachas, 6 brachas in the Amida. And further, the Goyzrim Yud Gimel Tinius, and they would decree 13 tiniest. So there's another Mishnah there on Yud Beis, Amud Beis. But so fasting 13 times and brachas. And then we find also in the Gemara in Tainis that V'choyni HaMagol, Choyni the Magol, Og Uga V'Amad B'Toicha V'Yispalel. He made a circle, he stood inside, and he davened. He says he's not going to come out until the rain goes. So we see that in order to get rain to come down, it took a great deal of effort. And the Rav Shimon bar Yochai, Rav Shimon Paul Zeh Amidas Drush, he affected rain. The rain started coming down by saying, expounding a drush, Klal. It has no effort at all. How come? How could this be? What is the point, the explanation, as understood from the Maimorim, that there's 2 ways to bring down the rain, either through davening or through learning. This that requires a lot of effort to bring down, to effect the rain, is only when we talk about davening. Why is it so hard through davening? You have to work hard to bring down the rain. The kivon shet tefillah hi milmata l'maylo. Prayer is from below to above. We need our prayers from below to go up above. So therefore, through this work of the davening of the low one, that it should arouse and draw down rain. The shoyresh hageshamim hulemailo mishtalshlus. The root of rain is higher than ishtalshlus. We have to arouse to bring down geshamim, which is higher than ishtalshlus. The Rebbe brings in Hora 17 that the Gemara says all keys were given over to everybody, but the rain of the keys for the rain have not been given over to anybody. That's by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's higher than ishtalshlus. So in order to get to that level of higher than ishtalshlus to bring down the rain, you need a special effort. But the way Rav Shimon bar Yochai brought down rain was al yidei amiras Torah, that by saying Torah, not through tefillah, but through Torah. The Torah, Torah comes from above to below. Belochein, the Torah's approach is it comes down from the top to the bottom, and that's mamshich. And since he did it through Torah, and that's why he didn't need to work hard and a lot of effort. Why is it that it was only Rav Shimon bar Yochai? The Rebbe is going to explain that in order to bring down rain through Torah, you need the specific Torah of learning, like Rav Shimon bar Yochai. The Rebbe will explain later, Pnimius HaTorah, because Torah needs to impact in the world. Normally, when it comes from above, but the difference is tefillah impacts in the world. It comes milmata, but this one, it comes from Torah milmaila. In order for it to come down into the world, the Torah needs to also have the advantage of tefillah that it's in the world, and therefore that has connected dafke to Rav Shimon bar Yochai. V'atam al zeh sheRabbi Shimon bar Yochai dafke himshich yeridas geshamim al yidei amidas Torah. Why is it dafke that it was Rav Shimon bar Yochai who specifically was able to bring down the rain through saying Torah? The reason is ki yeridas geshamim, because in order to bring down rain, after at first rain stopped. So now, what means in the nature of the world, there's no rain. To bring around rain, we're trying to change a change in world. So generally speaking, to change in the world, you need the tefillah that comes milamato. The fact that you make a change in the world, generally speaking, al yidei tefillah, Kimavur Betanya is explained in Tanya that usually it's through the davening. Elo Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, but Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai was different. And that's why Dafki here, that Gam Be'esek HaTorah Shaloi, also in his study, occupation of Torah, also Gam Hamayla de Tefillah, it also had the advantage of Tefillah. And therefore, V'lochein Himshich Yeridas Geshamim, that's why he was able to bring down the rain, make a change in the world, which normally takes tefillah, al yidei amiras Torah, by saying Torah. In the Torah of Rav Shimon bar Yochai, it also had the advantage of the tefillah in his Torah, and that's why it was Rav Shimon bar Yochai that brought it down. As the Rebbe will explain why. Gimel. Why is it normally the tefillah and the Torah, explaining about the difference between bracha and tefillah. Tefillah brings about a change. Bracha brings around the hamshacha from the source. Similar to bracha, and tefillah is also Torah. Torah is similar to bracha. As Rebbe will explain. Gimel. Inyan hu, the achiluk bein Torah tefillah, the difference between Torah and tefillah, hu al derech achiluk bein bracha v'tefillah. That's similar to the difference between bracha and davening. The tefillah, a blessing, or to prayer. The tefillah hi milmata lamaylo kinal. Prayer comes from below to above, as I said earlier. Shahamispalil hu lamata. The one who is praying is below. Umevakesh, and he asks sheyashpiu loy milmaylo, that they should give him, the flow should come from above. But ubracha hu mil hi milmaylo lamata. Bracha is from the top to the bottom. What does it mean from the top to the bottom? Sha'mevorech, the one who blesses. Zeh sheyesh lo koyach levorech. We're talking about the person who has the power to bless. Balderech Avram Avinu, similar to Avram Avinu, she'omar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Habrochesh Nesunas Loch, in which the Eberster tells him the blessings were given over to you, that Avram has the power to bless. So how does this come about? Ulamailo mahashoidesh. So that comes from above, from the root shemimenu nimsheches habrocha. There is the root above from which bracha comes. Umamshich oiso milmailo lamata, and he draws it down from above to below. So the bracha, the mevorech, can tap into the source, to the root, the shoresh, and he's mamshich it milmailo lamata. Vizehu, and this is also explains why shebracha he bederech tzivui. Bracha comes in a way not begging but command. Mevorech, mevorech hulemailo mehashoirish, because he is higher than the root, and he instructs the root shemishom nimshech habracha, nimsheches habracha, from which the blessing extends. And that's why he has the power to command. So this is the idea. The one who bless is himself higher from the root of the brachas, and he commands that the bracha to come down lemato. That's why it's a command, a tzivui. And because the one who blesses is in a higher madregi, he has the power to bless, to force it down lemato. V'hinei hamayla de bracha lagabe tefillah, this advantage of the blessing as it is relative to prayer, he benegeya leha'odom hamevorech v'hamispal. That is, you try to measure as it relates to the person that benches or prays. So the person who benches, he's in a higher madrega. The person who prays, he's in a low madrega going up. So that's why it makes much more powerful to be mevorech, because you're on the top. But avo b'negeil hamshocha atzma. But as far as it relates to the hamshocha itself, hamshocha shal yidei tefillah hinailis yosef. The hamshocha that comes through davening is actually a higher level. It's a greater level. Why? The inyan habrocha, because what a blessing is not to do something new, but to take something which is in the source to push it down below. Whereas davening is to bring down yehirotzi, something new. The inyan habrocha lahamshich ma shekvar nimtza b'hamoker. The idea of the bracha is to draw down that which already is found in the source, but v'loy davar chodesh. This is not something new. But the inyan hatifilahu. But what is the idea of prayer? Hu ba'koshem hakadosh baruch Hu. That is a request from Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Shegam be'im lo yesh no chas v'sholem ha'hashpa. Gam ba'moker, even if it's a case that it does not exist, God forbid, the flow is not in the source, it doesn't exist. So you can't just push it down because it's not there on the top. Not only is it not there, but it's already been decreed that he should be sick, God forbid, or similar. So there is already a decree there. So what does prayer do? Prayer wants to change that around. There should be drawn down a new flow from the Eid in Sof, Shalamailo mihishtalshlus, from higher than ishtalshlus. So what we're asking for is a yirotze, something new to change around and bring about, which doesn't exist in the source. Not only that, the source says that this is a decree here to be sick. We're going to change around what's in the source. That's why we say in many prayers, may it be the will. What does it mean? The pirush yihirot yihi, let there be our will, who sheyirot chadash. A new will, not the will that was already exists, but yihi, there should be a new will. So what's the reason? So what's the reason that to bring down this new light is dafke through davening? Is because God yearns for our action. He wants our prayers. So it's only through prayers that Hashem will change around the Yehirotzim. And that's why through the prayer, Avodas Hamato, which is the service of the ones below, Magim La'oire in Sof Shalamaylo Mehishtalshlus, we reach the Eir in Sof, which is higher than Ishtalshlus, because that's what the Eibishter wants us to pray to him. So that's the advantage of tefillah over bracha, because bracha pushes down a hashpah from what's already in the source, and tefillah brings about a new hashpah. So now the Rebbe is going to explain that Torah, in essence, has the same power as bracha to be mamshir from the higher, to bring about a change from higher than hishtalshlus, not just from the mocker, but to bring down a new hashpah, because when the Torah is geyser, Talmud Chacham is geyser with the power of Torah, that reaches up in the highest level. There is still a difference between the level of Tefillah and Torah, as the Rebbe will explain, because Torah is Chochmah, and the level of Tefillah is Ratzin, which is even higher than Chochmah. But Torah of Rav Shbi had the advantage that it Pnimis HaTorah, and therefore it was equal. And it's also like the level of tefillah that can bring down the rain. Now let's look inside. This aspect of davening, that through davening it draws down a new hashpah. Generally, this was also Torah also is able to be mamshir this hashpah chadosha, like we're talking about in tefillah. Unlike bracha, but Torah has the ability, like tefillah, to bring down, in general terms, it can also bring down hashpah chadosha. That we know that when Torah rules, it changes, makes a change in the world, as it's known from the Yerushalmi, that when the Beis Din makes a leap year, so which means even though she's already considered 3 years old, and physically it would seem that once she doesn't have the besulim, it's gone. But since it became known that there's a leap year, so she's not quite 3 years old yet because there's another month added, then Psula Soches. Anyway, this is a change in the world. So, which means Shenase Dover Chodesh Eloi Hoya Gam B'Sheidush U'Moker Ha'olam, that something new was made up that was not even in the root and the source of the world. Who? So how does Torah have that power? Ki ha-Torah hi l'mayla mishodesh ha'olam, because Torah is higher than the root of world, which therefore isn't impacted by the laws and the rules of the world. Ki ha-Torah hi chochmasa yizbarech, because Torah is his blessed wisdom. Shem l'mayla ma'chochma d'maisa brachus, which is higher than the level of chokhmah of the act of creation of the world. The lachain, and therefore, al yidei hapsak din the Torah, through the ruling of the halacha of Torah, nase shinui v'chidush b'ha'olam. That brings about, it makes up a change and a novelty, changes around things in the world. B'nimtza. So it turns out Torah yeshnam beis hamaylos, that in Torah you have both advantages. Hamaylo de tefillah, the advantage of prayer, which is hamshachas inyan chodesh, to bring down a new idea that wasn't there before. Not unlike bracha, which can only be mamshich, what was there. Torah has the advantage of tefillah, that tefillah can be in something new. And also v'hamaila the bracha, and also the advantage of bracha, that it comes down, like we said, directly, the hashinui v'hachidush shenase ba'olam al yidei hapsagdin da talmid chacham ha'isuk b'toirahu, because this change and the novelty that takes place in the world through the ruling of the Talmud Chacham, who is occupied in Torah, it's not like asking, like by tefillah, but it comes automatic, just like the bracha is mamshich milmay lematot, the Torah and the ruling of the Talmud Chacham brings it about automatically. As it's known in the idea be'inyan man malki rabbanon, who is considered a king. The rabbis are kings. So what did we explain over there? That it's like a king, that the commands that they happen. Why are they considered like kings? That they give out rulings, and that this is just follow their ruling. They're like the king. The liyois shalimud haTorah shalohem hu bebitl, since their study is through their self-effacement, they are bottle, negate themselves. So it's not they that are giving the ruling, they are basically giving over the rulings of Hashem. So the ruling of the laws that they rule, the king that kings HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's the king himself decrees, and he says the ruling. And since this is what the king decreed, it becomes automatically the king decreed, and therefore it happens. So this is similar. Besides in Rashbi, there's more, but we find this is the Mila of Torah. So there were miracles that were made by the Tanoim and the Amoraim, Al Yidei Esek HaTorah Shalem, through their study in Torah, they were able to change things in the world through their ruling, because it was Hashem's ruling, because of their bittul. Hashem's ruling came through them. Kemoyre Pinchas ben Yoir, as the Gemara says about the Pinchas ben Yoir in Chulin, Sha'omar Ginoyi Narecha Loikli Meimecha. He says, River Ginoyi split so I can go through. So in the change of Torah, we have both advantages. So yes, no, so here existed two advantages. Shinui v'chidush behanor. There's a change, there's a novelty in the nahor, which means she'ene gam b'shorshu u'makoyre, which is not even in the root and the source. As we said before, beracha can only bring what's in the source, but tefillah changes even what's not in the root and the source. So that's accomplished the all of a sudden the river Ginoi to split. It's not in the source. This is something new. So which is Hamayla de Tefillah. This is the Tefillah Yirotz is something new. And also, but on the other hand, Shinui benor nasa idei hatzivui, that the change in the river but comes through the command shel Rabbi Pinchas ben Yoir. He commands it, which is Hamayla de Bracha, which is the advantage of Bracha. The Bracha commands the Mevorech, it's in the Lashon Tzivui, commands it to take place. So that would be ordinary by Torah. So the Rebbe continues in Oishei that there is still the limitation when it comes through Torah, because Torah is Chochmah and Tefillah can reach even higher. We need Rav Shimon Bar Yochai to reach to that higher level that Tefillah can do. Hey, Elo Sha'afal Pikein, but still there's a Maila b'Tefillah legabe Torah. There is still an advantage in the davening relative over Torah. Ki Torah hi Chochmah, because Torah is wisdom. The Chochmah, but as long as we're talking about wisdom, so even Gam HaChochmah, the Torah Shalamayla MaChochmah, the Maise Bereshis, even when we're talking about the Chochmah of Torah, which is higher than the Chochmah Maise Bereshis, so it's a much higher level in Chochmah, it still has no comparison at all relative to the infinite light of the Ein Sof, which is endless. So ba'yidei hatefillah mamshichim rotzen chodesh, but through the davening we bring down the new rotzen me'orein sof from the level of orein sof shelamaylo gam ha'chochma de Torah, which is even higher of the chochma of Torah. So tefillah brings a rotzen chodesh in it from an area which Torah cannot bring. That's the normal miracles that are made through Torah by the Pinchas ben Yoir and the Tanoim and the Amoraim. But there is a novelty about the Torah of Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. The novelty in the fact that Rav Shimon Bar Yochai brought down this descent of rain, Amiras Torah, by saying Torah legabe ha'moifsim ha'atzumim, relative, measure it up next to the powerful miracles, wonders, also kamo tanoim va'ameroim, which many of the tanoim ameroim did aidei esekat Torah shalahem through their study of Torah, is shashinui ba'olam she'asu kol hatanoim va'ameroim, that this change in the world that was made by all the Tanoim v'Amoraim, who al yidei sheimshichu v'gilu, that comes through bringing down and revealing shekenu al pi chochmas haTorah, that this is the way it needs to be according to the wisdom of the Torah. That's how they wrote it down. And the Rebbe brings down in Ha'oreh 31 that when it says from Likutei Torah, from the Rama Magid, when it says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu goizer and the tzaddik is mevatel, it's similar to when a father gives a novelty in Torah, and then the son, who is more brilliant than the father, he goes and contradicts his words. So we're here to understand that what does it mean that tzaddik is mevatel, the decree, and the Eibishter says Natzchuni bone Natzchuni, similar to that. So that means that the Torah, within the Torah frame, you came up. And so, no, it shouldn't be decree like that. It should be different. So when the Pinchas ben Yair said, if you are not going to split to the river Ginoi, I am going to decree that should never be water there, that wasn't just a decree, but it was an explanation. So he explained how, according to Torah, so this is what the Rebbe is bringing in Hara 31, to prove that this is actually the wisdom of the Torah that changes around and says that there should be the meifas, whatever the Tana did. But v'achi, there's the Yiridas Motor al Yidei Sherab Shimon Bar Yochai Amar Drush. But what was the novelty that the rain came down when Rav Shimon Bar Yochai said the pasuk Matoy Manoim Shevasach Gam Yochad, is that even though he wasn't talking, that Drush Amar Shayich Rak Linyan Amotor Bechlal, he said that the minor that talks just about rain in general. In Rav Shbi's Torah, he did not say that the world deserves rain then. So in the Torah, even though it talks generally about rain, and there never references Torah here, but still, there was no specific explanation that according to Chochmas HaTorah, there needs to be rain now. So it turns out that even according to the wisdom of Torah, which is higher than the root of the world, the world was not fitting to have rain. The fact that rain came down when he said this drush, this expounding on the pasuk Hulifisha al Yidei Amiras Hadrush, by saying the drush Himshich Ma'irin Sof Shalamayla Mechochma de Torah. He actually brought down from the Ein Sof, which is higher than Chochma de Torah. Bedugmas Hamshocha Shal Yidei Tefillah, similar to the Hamshocha the davening. So that's a novelty over all the other cases in which Chochmas HaTorah devises says that it has to be so. Here it wasn't that Chochmas HaTorah, the Maimer did not include the drush that they deserve rain, and yet it came down the rain because it tapped into a place which is higher in the Ein Sof, which is higher than Chochmas HaTorah. How come it was Dafke Rashbi that did it? V'yesh loymar, and we can say this uniquely. This that through the saying of Torah of the Rashbi, we get from the Ein Sof, which is higher than the wisdom of Torah, who kibipnimius haTorah meir begilui oir and sof. Because in pnimius haTorah, there openly is Ein Sof in pnimius haTorah. Since the Rashbi was the source of the inner of Torah, also in the revealed part of Torah, the Rashbi, when he learned it, there was a shine of the Epinimius over there, as the Rebbe brings down in the various different Maimorim. that through learning Pnimis Torah, he reached that connection between Torah and HaKadosh Baruch Hu in all parts of Torah. Lochein, that's why it's Dafkir of Shimon Bar Yochai, Al Yidei Amidas Torah Shaloi, through his saying of Torah, Himshich Begilui Oirin Sof Shal Ma'ilo Mahatorah, he draw down openly from the Oirin Sof, which is higher than Torah. So it was Dafkir the Rashbi that was able to reach to that level to bring about, just like Tefillah, higher totally from the Ein Sof, just like Tefillah. But V'hinei this to change in the created being, to bring about a change. Generally, it's through davening, as is brought in the Sibes Metanya, that you pray to change the one who is sick. That's mainly through prayer. So why does prayer able to change the reality in this world? That is for two reasons. That a change comes in the creation. That's through drawing down the Ein Sof from higher than Ishtalshlus. How do we get to that higher than Ishtalshlus, that we bring down to this new a change in the world? That is drawn down through the elevation, the feminine water, Sarusa de Latato to Tefillah, through Tefillah. Kinal, so if Siv Gimel, like we said before in the end of Siv Gimel. That's one. But the Gam, an additional reason is in order to bring about a change in the creations below, through that light that comes from the higher ishtalshul that comes down to them, they have to become vehicles, vessels to receive that light. Through elevating and bringing up the feminine water, the sarusa de latata nomata lamailo, through the davening, so the level of the low becomes a vehicle to that blessing that comes from the Ein Sof, that is lamailo mihishtalshlus, for it to be effective. So one is in order to get to this Seder lamailo mihishtalshlus, and two is to become a receptacle to be able to receive that. Now that we're saying that through Torah we accomplish also that change, we have to say that it does both. It brings down from higher than Hishtalshlus, it also changes the matter. So based on this, we have to say, he brought down the rain through saying Torah, is because when he said the Torah, there were both aspects. The bringing down the Ein Sof, then higher than the Ishtalshlus, the Gam Hazichuch, the Hamata, and also the refinement of the below Kidil Kamon, as the Rebbe will now explain. So basically, we explained before that Torah can be mamshech milamaila, but this is the second aspect. There's also the requirement of the zichuch of the mata, the refinement of the below. Yesh loymar, so we can say the zeh hu gam madi isa bezoyar. This is also that we find in the Zohar. What is it? What is the instant, the case in which Rav Shimon Bar Yochai's saying Torah brought down a flow, hoiso yeridas geshamim. It talks about the bringing down rain. Ki bezeh mudgash, because in this that he brought the rain, it's emphasized the zeh shebeteirosei shel Rashbi, that Rashbi's teaching, his learning, his Torah was at the level that hoiso gam hamayla de tefillah, that he also had the advantage of prayer in it. It's not just that he had the advantage, the hamshacha milumayla mihishtalshlus, that it can come from higher than ishtalshlus, elogam hamayla the zichul chamata, but it also has the advantage that the bottom, the lower one, is refined. That is learned from rain, because rain basically, and that's why it expressed itself, that special power of Reb Shpi's Torah in bringing down Hamshacha Lamata, not just to reflect the fact that he can reach up and higher than Ishtalshlus through Torah, as we said before, even higher than Chochmas Torah, but also that it can impact to refine the Mata, which is an requirement through tefillah that we do in order to be able to receive that Hamshacha. That is also, and that's why the example is rain. So what's the idea? The zesh hashpos hageshomim bo al yidei yisaruso deletato, that to bring down rain comes through the arousal of the blow, is shaykh lahageshem atzmei, that is connected to rain itself. By rain itself, how does rain come down below? Comes from the bottom. There's a cloud comes from the bottom. The kamoi shebegashmius hagai shembo, just as physically. The rain comes meha anonim shenasim melechus haaretz, that it comes from the clouds that are created from the moisture of the ground, as the pasuk says, "Ve'ed yalem min haaretz v'hishkas pnei ha'adama." There will be a cloud that comes from the earth, and that would water the face of the earth. Same thing is on the spiritual level. The Geshem who inyan shenase, that rain is an idea. The concept of rain is shenase nimshach al yidei isaruso deletato. Rain means that it's created through the isaruso deletato, through the eid yalamin oretz. Bekivon she'inyan hageshem, that is rain. Hu hamshacha sha'al yidei isaruso deletato, that comes down through the arousal from below. Move on. This that through the saying, the teaching of Torah of Rashbi, rain came down. Why rain is because in the teaching of Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, yesh non noisef al hamayla habo, in addition to the advantage, that which comes al yidei sarusa dilatato, it comes through sarusa dilatato, but that hamshach itself is not through us. It comes through us. Hamshacha milamayla mishtalshus. So sarusa dilatata gives you that one aspect of tefillah in which it comes milamayla, but it also gam hamayla the sarusa dilatata atzma. It is rain. It's like rain. Zichul chamata, that there is a refinement of the mata, and that's represented in rain, because the whole thing of rain is that it comes from mata. V'yeshloimar habiru b'zeh. So what's the explanation why the teaching of Rab Shimon Bar Yochai has the Zichud Chamata also, as well as bringing down from Milmaila Mihishtalshus, that it's like Geshem, it's like rain. And that's why it's represented in the fact that rain came down. The Zesha Torah, that the fact that normally Torah, which is Amshocha Milmaila, comes from above, with Tefillah, which is Avodas Odom, which is the prayer, which is the service of the man, Hem Shnei and Yonim, they're two separate matters. So we talked about before, there is a mila in each one, that Tefillah goes higher than Ishtalshus, as higher in the Chochmas HaTorah, as opposed to Torah only up to the Chochem level of Chochmas HaTorah. And also that there's a Mila in Torah comes automatic, like the Bracha. That is in the level of the souls as they have already become an entity. But from the perspective of the root of the soul, as they are rooted in Atzmus, we cannot separate, differentiate between the Hamshocha of above and the Avodah of the person. The Yisrael v'Kutshabricha Kulachad, over there, the Yidden and Hashem are really one. There's no Adam and no Torah, no Madel, Mata. It's everything is one. The Gilui Inyan Zeh. But this revelation in the Shodesh HaNeshama, that there's no difference, Yisrael v'Kutshabricha Imchat Mamish, that Yidden and Hashem are really one. That's in the inner of Torah. Rashbi, that was Rashbi's Torah, was the inner part of Torah. And that is why in the teaching of Rashbi, we also have the tefillah, the refinement of the mata, because in Rashbi is the gala, how the shoyresh of Yidden in their shoyresh neshamas as Yisrael Kuchabricha Kulu Chad, and B'meila, both things are accomplished, the zikr chamata, also through the limud Torah. Zayir. So we can also say the Zeh Sha'amidas HaTorah de Rab Shimon Bar Yochai Hoysem BePosuk. So why was it Tafke in the Posuk? Hine Matoiv Manoim Shevasachim Gam Yochad. Who Mitzat Shnei Yonim is for two reasons. Lifi Shezeh Shaykh Liyididas Geshomim, because this is related. Is related to Limud Torah, to the scent of Gisham, as the Rebbe said earlier in Sifhei. Because as the Rebbe brought out, Torah itself is brought down from the level which is higher. Actually, in Sif Hey, the Rebbe brought Ha'ara, that it's only generally connected to Yidiz's Gishomim, the Pasik Matoiv Manoim. The Chiddush was that it affected, even though there was no specific mention for rain, Lamato, and yet Torah can change that as well, but there's a connection to that Yidiz's Gishomim. But mainly, the Rebbe brings out now that the Gam also, what he did was he impacted by saying Torah what? That it should come down rain. Normally, rain comes from Isarusa Dilatata. Shinyonim hu Isarusa Dilatata Vedus Odom. To impact rain, the idea is arousal from below Avedus Odom. How do we do that? Al Yidei Amidas Torah. Normally, it's done through tefillah. He did it through Torah. Hamshacha milmaylo, Torah shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Instead of tefillah avodas ha'odom, he brought it down to the HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He said the pasuk Matoiv Manoim Shebesach Gam Yochad because what he was doing over here, he was bringing down rain, which is normally done through Isarusa Dilatato. He brought it down through Torah, through Amshacha Milamaylo. How could this work? As the Rebbe explained, it's because the Yidden and Hashem are one. That's why they have the power, as the Rebbe says. The Torah Rashbi, that was Mizgala, the Kuchabrichu Kulchad, that there's really no difference. And we could be bringing down the rain through the Hamshacha, through Torah without tefillah. That was Mizgala. So that's why he said the Torah on the Pasuk. Lochein, Amidas HaTorah Shlo is a pasuk Sheves Achim Gam Yochad brought down from the Zohar before. Who is the Sheves Achim Gam Yochad? Shekoyel HaYichud Kudshem Brichu Yisrael that goes on the Yichud of Hashem and the Yidden. That is why Torah has the power of Rashbi to bring down the Geshem. That's why he said the pasuk of Matoiv Manoim Sheves Achim. Besides the point that brought down in Siv Hey, that there is a general connection from the pasuk to rain, but here we see specifically because in order to accomplish through Torah Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the normal thing that you need is Sarusa Dilatata Milamata Lamayla Tefillah, is because when Kuchabrichu is when it's Izgala that the Yidden and the Eibishter are together, there's no difference there. You can bring it down even through Torah. That's the pasuk Matoiv Manoim Sheves Achim Gam Yochad, which talks about the yichud of the Kuchabrichu and the Knesset Yisrael. Came over a little bit chilas hamaymer. That's brought down to the beginning of the maymer. V'yesh lahoisiv. We can add to it. Zehu gama shebedrusha loy shal yidodei pol yidus geshomim. That also in the maymer that Rashbi did say when he started to say Matoiv Manoim Sheves Achim Gam Yochad. What did he say over there in that drush, in which he accomplished the rain to descend? Medubar being in Avas Yisrael. He speaks there of Avas Yisrael. Shagam eile shebitchila hayu magiche krovo. Over there he talks about there were those that were goring in the war. The boy lekotlo dolado. They were killing each other. They wanted to kill each other. The basar is hadru b'rechimusa da'ava. And then later on, they turned around with love of brotherly love. Matoiv Manoim Sheves Achim Gam Yochad. They're talking about by David HaMelech. They were fighting, and then they were all together. Kial Yidei. So why is he? This is the Torah. Kial Yidei ha'avo va'achdus the Yisrael. Because through the love and the unity, the oneness of the Yidden Mizgale ha'avo va'achdus, the Yisrael va'kodesh Baruch Hu. That's the way the love and the achdus of the Yidden HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Yidei Sheves Achim. When you have the Sheves Ha'ava v'achda the Yisrael, when Yidden are together, Nimshach Liyoi, so then is Gam Yochad, the Gam Lachloli Ben Shechina, that we bring in the Shechina also, that the Shechina is also unites with the Yidden. And that's accomplished. And that's why this is what is important. And that's why that pasuk is where Reb Shimon Bar Yochai said, and the darshan about the Amas Yisrael. Ches. Bezo kashemen hatoiv. The good oil, Gomer. Shemen hu chochma. Oil is chochma, which is Torah. So shemen bechlal, there is shemen, the shemen hatoiv, the good oil. Regular oil is chochma, which is Torah. Shemen hatoiv upnimius hatoiv. That's the inner of Torah. V'yesh lekasher zei mashakosu meforsh hazoyar. We can connect this to that which the commentators of the Zohar say, the shemen hatoiv hu ha'oras yisoid atik. The shemen hatoiv, the good oil, that is the shine of yisoid of atik. That's already pnimius hakeser. Kigalia, the Torah, the revealed part of Torah, shayich la'arich. That is chitzonis hakeser, arich. But upnimius HaTorah, that is la'atik. V'zehu sheves achim gam yochad, the union of brothers together, kashem and hatoiv, just like the good oil, the oil primis hatoiv. Shebechdei li sheves achim, in order for it to be sheves achim, hu alidei limud primis hatoiv. That is through the shemen hatoiv, through the studying of primis hatoiv, could be that connection. The Pasuk continues, which descends on the beard of Aaron, that descends on his midas. So we're talking here about two descents. Zokan hu havonas vasogas haTorah. Zokin, that is understanding, grasping Torah. Zokin shekona chochma, as we say, a zokin is one who acquired wisdom. Umidoisov, what is midos? Zoken is levusha mitzvahs, that is the garment of the mitzvahs. Shalimud de pnimius haTorah, the study of tzorich lachder, that needs to durchnem, it needs to penetrate. Kol hakoyches sheloi, it needs to go through the zoken, hein avona v'asoga, whether it is the understanding and the grasping. And also in action, in actuality. Zokin Yerid ala Zokin Zkan Aren, shared up in Medaisa, both for mitzvahs, maisius, and the sale, and Chochmah, and Torah. That way it becomes brothers together. Gam Yochad, She'avas Yisrael, that the love that we have for another Yid is in a way of Sheves Achim is Kashrus. Dugmas Kishru Tenoim, that is, you tie yourself as the tying of Tenoim. But more than this, Ba'ifin the Gam Yachad, also in a way of Yachad Yichud Nisuim, that union of marriage. By Dezeh, and through this, Kuchebrichus, Atzis Li Milulayu. Hashem listens to their speech, to their talk, V'nasim Kelim, and they become the vessels, the kabil, hashpoah made in sof shem ba'agbolas, to receive their vessel, to receive the flow from the Ein Sof that has no limitation. Gam loy ha'agbola de chochmas haTorah, not even the agbola chochmas haTorah, as we said, even higher than chochmas haTorah. Sha'kodesh baruch hu atzmei, Hashem himself, mashpia l'kol echad v'echad miYisrael. He gives to each and every one of the Yidden Rav Toiv, lots of good, but Toiv Hadirim Anigla, in the good that is visible and revealed. Children, life, and wide sustenance.